the charge with Dragon Ball Z at midnight.
I am the greatest warrior who has ever lived! Die.
Then brace yourself for our newest show, Kill a Kill at 12:30.
Ask not the sparrow how the eagle soars! My will is absolute!
Naruto Shippuden strikes hard at 1 o'clock.
Monsters, Inc. Oh, right, I already did that for the last Monsters, Inc. game I did. Hold on 1 second.
2 hours later.
Okay, I already talked about Monsters, Inc., so I literally watched the second movie just to have something different to talk about for the intro section for the game based on the first movie. Look, we all make mistakes, okay? Monsters University. The prequel to Monsters, Inc. that fleshed out Mike and Sulley's relationship through their college life before becoming scarers. As far as sequel Pixar movies go, this, along with Finding Dory, kinda came out of nowhere, but for me, Monsters University was pretty good. Maybe it's because I'm almost through with college at this point and I relate with some stuff in a movie revolving around a college setting. Who knows. Monsters University never got a game. Instead, Disney Infinity came out shortly after the movie's release, with Sulley being one of the starter pack figures for the game. And now I've run out of stuff pertaining to the second movie to talk about and have to focus on the first movie for the rest of the video. Again, we all make mistakes here. 3 games were made based off of Monsters Inc. One for PS1, another for PS2, and Scream Arena on GameCube, which I already covered. The PS1 game came out first, but hey, I'm already doing stuff out of order. I'll just talk about Monsters at Work when I get to that game. But today, I'll be looking at the Monsters Inc. video game because surprisingly a lot of people want to see this one over some of the other ones I had. You guys continue to surprise me, honestly. This game follows the movie's plotline. The first movie, not the second one, just in case I haven't clarified that. Honestly, there's not much to talk about outside of one thing, that being that the game ends right after Mr. Waternoose gets arrested, which is kind of an odd place to end the story off since the entire story is about getting Boo back to her world, and you don't end up seeing that happen. You even see Randall get exiled to be beaten by Florida men, but you don't get to know that Boo is safe, and how the game transitions out of that scene does not help.
Monsters Incorporated is dead! Where will everyone get their scream now? The energy crisis will only get worse because of you!
Now, given that this game was released about 5 months after the movie, the chances that you've already seen the movie and know what happens before playing the game is higher than a lot of other license-based games, but it's literally just the last 10 minutes of the whole movie that aren't adapted for some reason. I'm just saying, since you included everything else, you might as well have used the last 10 minutes. It's just an awkward conclusion if you already know what happens. I'm going to preface this entire segment by pointing out that I had to play the game twice, once via PS2 and once via emulator, both of them using the same disc. Why, you ask? Well, the emulator version looks about normal, maybe a bit upscaled in quality, but normal. The PS2 version on the other hand looks fine in person, but then the footage looks like this. Some areas are completely unseeable, and it's not an issue with my recording in general because menus and cutscenes look the same as in the emulator, and then I look at other people's PS2 footage and the gameplay looks perfectly fine there. No PS2 version of a game has had this much darkness in the footage alone. I have no idea what happened. Regardless of those issues, this game is pretty ugly looking. Characters from a distance aren't too bad, but up close, there's a good reason these guys benefited off of scaring children at one point. Mike is an exception to that. He's probably the least intimidating looking character in the whole game, and thinking about Monsters University, that makes too much sense. Sulley though is probably the worst offender because I don't even feel like his head shape is right. Maybe I'm the only one who feels this way, but the face structure just doesn't look like Sulley to me. Textures on environments are okay, but some walls have repeating textures that are rather noticeable if you pay enough attention. And animations are a bit of a mixed bag, because in-game scenes at least attempt to give proper lip syncing in terms of the timing, which I'll give props to. But then other animations are just stiff looking or don't loop too well, or just stuff like that. It's jarring seeing stuff like that side by side. Going back to the cutscenes, they are clips from the movie, and the opening scene for the game is actually the trailer for the movie, which is odd considering that, again, the movie was already in theaters for a couple months at this point, so it just seems weird. Also, the loading screen, which also uses frames from the movie, is a reference to the standby/scare point scoring thing that the monsters use for their scaring jobs, which is a cool little way of using that. The music is definitely the best part of the entire game. It gives a lot of the same feel that the music in the movie gives for all 14 songs, and there are some good listens. As Sulley, your main objective is getting from the start of levels to the end of them, while avoiding enemies, making your way across platforming, and interacting with various objects. You have multiple movement options, including jumping to reach ledges and platforms, climbing up and down ladders, and getting across giant gaps by either sliding along high-up zip lines or going up ropes. To assist in this further, your jump height is increased when hopping on top of trampoline-esque items, and you can push carts towards walls. You also have a charge, which gives a small dash forward. Interacting with stuff will do different things depending on the object you interact with. For people, you get information about things in the area as well as tips on how to proceed. Outside of that, you'll scare machines by roaring at them in order to get them to activate, which can open some doors and others you collect keys for, activate moving platforms or elevators, shut off electricity on zip lines, and more. It really just depends on what the thing is connected to. Two types of enemies are also around, one that you can defeat by using Sulley's spin attack, and the CDA agents. For the agents, you'll have to avoid them as they'll start to chase you once you're nearby, and if they catch you, it will result in a death. Since you can take damage, you can grab some treats which give back some health, or a Sulley head which completely refills your life bar. In addition to those, other collectibles can be obtained such as 5 scream canisters and 5 monster mice scattered around each level. Collecting all of the canisters or scaring all of the mice in time unlocks a movie. There are also 100 individual screams in each level, and getting all of the screams unlocks a bonus level, which is a minigame you can play after beating that level where all of your collectibles are tallied up. The scaring mechanic is actually pretty cool. It's a solid representation of the way fear energy was a major part of the movie, and it was well adapted as a gameplay mechanic. Though I do find it funny in an imaginary scenario for the movie where the monsters had to scare every single piece of technology they came across in order for society to proceed. The other mechanics, on the other hand, make the game rather annoying to get through. Dealing with enemies in general just sucks. If you're able to attack an enemy, 9 times out of 10, attempting to do so will result in you getting hit. I'm pretty sure you're not invincible during the spin attack, which is really bad given how short-ranged it is. Seriously, it tends to be better to just outright ignore the enemies if you can. And the charge move is pretty much pointless. The only 2 times you'll use it is for moving between places faster, which quite frankly isn't even that much faster, and opening some areas, which are very few and far between each other. Since it doesn't hit enemies and isn't really designed as a dodging mechanic, it's kinda worthless otherwise. The stealth is implemented horribly as well, which is the only other option for dealing with CDA agents. For starters, whenever it works, it looks incredibly dumb because you're either just squatting in front of someone and they somehow can't see you, or you avoid them by being on a different elevation than them, and they'll just stop chasing you. Because of this, the ease of dodging them depends on the areas they're located. Wide open areas make them laughably easy to avoid, even sometimes not being able to see you while you're right in front of them and not using the stealth mechanics of crouching down. But in tight condensed hallways, they become a lot harder to dodge since there's significantly less room to work with. In this situation, the best options would be to either wait a while until they walk past the room you're in to sneak out, or move your camera around to see if they're even in these long stretches of walking space. But for the former, it can take a while, and it's pretty much wasting your time if there aren't any guys there. And for the latter, the camera is not exactly cooperative in these areas, making seeing past the front entrance harder than I'd like. The platforming difficulty is also dependent on the levels you're in, because for whatever reason, half the platforms don't really have that much advanced platforming to deal with, but then the other half has really precise platforming that you'll have to repeat a decent amount of if you end up falling down, which makes sense, you shouldn't be rewarded for failure, but due to how quickly you move forward, this precise platforming is very easy to mess up. So you have to force yourself to jitter forward to make it across while also having to deal with both of the enemies I already brought up. Seriously, some areas are super unforgiving, especially if you're trying to 100% the game. The second level of the game has this giant vertical section where if you fall down, you'll pretty much have to repeat all of it, which is then followed by a train section, and if you miss one of the individual screams, you have to die in order to try and get them again. That is the second level of the game, and technically still a tutorial level because it's the first level where enemies are brought in. A lot of the extras are available as soon as you open the game. It's kinda weird to have so many extras available at the start, even for license-based games. These could have been unlockable stuff for getting high scores on minigames, which would give some form of incentive to play those, as otherwise you won't even bother. However, these are the best parts about the entire game, and personally I don't like the minigames or gathering the collectibles all that much, so I'm kinda glad I don't have to do any of that to get these initial videos, even if it would be meaningful to have them tied to that stuff. This game is not good, and that's putting it very loosely. Being frank here, the only thing this game really has going for it is the music and the extras that come with the game. Outside of that, almost everything seemed to actively work to lessen the player's overall enjoyment. I didn't say this earlier, but this game is only about 2 hours long, but whenever this game isn't boring, it's frustrating, and when those two attributes are together, any amount of time will feel a lot worse. And need I remind you that I had to play through the game twice to get actually usable footage? I think the phrase second verse, same as the first, applies here, because it wasn't fun to play through the first time, and it definitely wasn't the second time. What's going on, my fellow residents? It's me, TheFrozenCavern, and thank you guys for making it to the end of this video. As you guys have seen now, I have now done another Monsters Inc. game, which is kind of surprising. I didn't really think people would be too interested in it. I'd say the best thing about this experience is now having seen Monsters University, because otherwise I pretty much would never have seen that movie. Not that I didn't even like it, I just hadn't seen it before this review. So typically, at least if a game isn't all that great, if I haven't seen the movie or the source material, chances are I'll enjoy that, and I can at least get that form of enjoyment. Unfortunately, that also means that the very beginning is the most amount of fun I'm gonna have if the game is bad, and that unfortunately happens a lot. But anyways, make sure you go down to the description below because that's where all of my social medias are located. My Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Discord are all in the description, and they are always for you guys to be notified about whenever I have another update for the channel or when I'm uploading another video. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more, as well as share this video out with your friends and family. But until next video, take care.